today I wanted to talk to you about a topic that we have talked about before, last year sometime, but I came across some information that I didn't really think about, and so it's some new information in a sense to go along with the old information and get you guys thinking on some things as well. And that is about what I'm going to call this is author estate planning. And I know some of you have a lot of things in place. You have a will in place. You track, especially Susan. She's a spreadsheeter and puts everything on a spreadsheet, and that's perfect. Like that's what you should be doing. But I came across this information of some things to take note of, and I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. And so as I'm trying to think about what should we talk about over the next few weeks that we have left together, and what's like something really important. And this is a super important topic. If you haven't done this, you're going to want to make sure you implement this. And if you have done it, you might pick up on some things today that you need to add or things that you need to remember to go out and update. Um, Mary, I am next week am planning to go over the social media, how to get followers, things like that. So I'm planning that for next week. Okay. And um, so be here next week. All right. So for the estate planning, well, what I found this book. I don't know how I found this book, but I found this book on Amazon. And it's a big book. It's 8.5 by 11, and it's quite thick too. There's like almost 200 pages in here. It's called An Author's Legacy. I don't remember how much I paid for it. It's probably 20 bucks or more. I don't know. But I saw it and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get this and just see what's in here and see if there's anything that could help you guys and such. And I've had this book for probably a couple months and haven't, I've scrolled through it, but not a lot until recently. And he talks about really everything about estate planning. He says, what's a will? What's a codicil? What's a trust? He's even got a sample will in here, and he's got all kinds of forms to help you out. If you buy the book, he's got spreadsheets that you can download and so forth. But it was some of the things in this book that I read that got me thinking. So I'm going to go through some things. Some of these I've already talked about in the past, and I'm going to hit on some things that he brings up that will be hopefully helpful to you, or at least maybe some of you. So the first thing is, if you don't have a spreadsheet, that I would create a spreadsheet of your books, and you want to put on there, the name of your book, the title, the subtitle, um, your author name, how it's presented. And this is not for your purposes. This is for somebody you're like in the executor to your estate. So if they need to, find your book or whatever, they know exactly what the exact title, the subtitle, exactly how your name is presented, the ISBN number for that book. And if you've used like Amazon's free ASIN number instead of buying an ISBN number, then provide that number. And then you could have a column that says, self-published or traditionally published, and, let them know how you published it. Because if it's through a traditional publisher, they're going to need to know who that is and how to contact them. So you're going to want to also provide, you could have another spreadsheet or put it on there, just make another column, whatever, who the publisher is, who the contact person is, and then their contact information, whether that's a phone number, an email, whatever. What formats your book is in, ebook, audiobook, paperback, hardcover, what formats did you publish it in? Are there any co-authors? Do you have a book that was translated? So maybe like, I know Connie, you're working on one. So you have the book in English and then now you have it in translation. Make sure you add that one to the list as well. And, you know, where are these published? What marketplaces, is this published in? What's your main marketplace and all that? What platforms did you publish it? If you are self-publishing, did you just use Amazon? Did you use Ingram Spark? Did you go anywhere else? And then you're also going to want to have a spreadsheet with all your login information. And you're going to want to put that in a safe. You want to put that someplace safe. You don't want anybody and everybody to have all your login information. But that's going to go for everything that you have, beyond your book. But do you have a website? Okay, who's hosting it? So, they need to be able to log in and turn off your website unless you're going to have them keep it running. So you're going to have to let them know what your wishes are for each one of your books. So you could have that on your spreadsheet. Do you want them to unpublish it? Do you want it to be assigned to somebody? And so forth. So they need to know all of that. But other accounts might be like if you have a Zoom account, your Amazon account, like I said, your website, who's hosting it, email accounts, maybe you have a Canva account, especially anything that's paid. If you have any paid account, like Canva has a free version and a paid version. So you're going to want to get all of those accounts written down and list, if it's a paid version, how much is being paid and maybe the date that it renews so that they can go out there and get that canceled as soon as possible. If you have social media accounts, if you're doing any kind of advertising, are you doing any paid advertising on Facebook, in a magazine, anywhere, on YouTube, anywhere? If you're doing any kind of paid marketing, they need to know about that. So you're going to have to write those names of those places down, how, contact information, if you're, going through a rep or something, if you are, or login information, like if you're just setting up an ad through Facebook, they need to have all that login information. So they need all of that information. And again, what are your intentions for the book? What do you want to happen? So there's different things that you could do for your book. You could just tell them, if you want to keep it super simple, you could just say, just go and unpublish all my books and have Amazon close out my account. Easy peasy, whatever. If you want your books to live on, then you're going to have to decide, okay, there's three different things that can happen. The account can be closed. You could merge accounts. So let's say I wanted to leave all of my books to one of you and your authors, so you have a KDP account. So my account would be merged with your account. And this would all have to be, you'd have to notify KDP. So whoever your executor has to notify KDP, and they're going to have to provide the death certificate, and they're going to have to, you know, provide their authority. So they're probably like their authority to be the executor of the estate and so forth. But the account can be merged so that now you have my books under your ownership. Or you can just transfer ownership, period, of your books. And I don't know how all this is done. I'm not an attorney. So these are just some things that were mentioned that you could do. And honestly, I would really strongly recommend consulting an attorney or getting this all set up so that your executor knows exactly what to do and instruct the executor to work with the attorney. And maybe the attorney reaches out to Amazon or to wherever else you have your book published so that it's done correctly. But you're going to have to let them know in your will, what are your wishes for your books? You know, do you want them to continue on? Maybe you want all the proceeds to go to some charity, a charity that you feel is going to live on. One of the things, I think it was in this book that I read, that you might want to consider having it passed on, the rights to the books or whatever, to blood relatives. And you'd want to mention it as blood relatives so that if, let's say, your daughter gets divorced, that the ex-husband can't come after the royalties of that book. So if you keep it in the bloodline, then ex people can't come in and make claim to it. So a lot of different things to consider that I never really thought about. So And that's all complicated. Those are things you need to think about, talk over with your attorney, how you want to present that, how it should be written up, and so forth. Copyright, who gets the copyright to your book? Copyright is considered intellectual property, or your book is considered intellectual property. And um, something I read in this book is about never selling your copyright, which I never thought to do. So don't sell your copyright. Um, but you can license it. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I don't know how that works. So that would be something maybe an attorney could really spell out for you. You could leave it in a trust. Your copyright is good for up until your death plus 70 years. So it's good as long as you're alive, and then an additional 70 years. After that 70 years, it would go into public domain, which means anybody can take that book and reprint it with their name on it, whatever, unless somebody recopyrights it. And after you're gone 70 years, maybe you don't care. But, if your family members do, they would need to recopyright it, somebody 70 years down the line. So, just so you're aware of that. One thing he mentioned in this book, which is a little scary, is he said the second that Amazon learns about your death, they'll instantly close your account, which isn't good. So you, I think working with an attorney to reach out to Amazon might be the best so that they still can access your books. If Amazon closes the account down, then does that mean they're unpublishing your book? Probably. Not necessarily a big deal unless you wanted to live it, have it live on. Then your executor is going to have to figure out how to republish it and all this other stuff. So best to be able to communicate with Amazon with all the information right up front so they don't just go out and close the account. And, in that initial contact, the executor should tell them, do not close the account yet. Here's what their wishes are and so forth. And again, an attorney would know how to address all of that. So I would, advise your executor in your will that they work with an attorney. And then you're going to have to provide them with contact information to Amazon. How do they get a hold of Amazon? In Amazon's terms and conditions, they do not like you sharing your login information with anybody. Like right now, if I shared my login information with somebody and they found out, they wouldn't be too happy about it. But if if I'm helping you get your book up, I need to be able to log in. Okay. And if you'd get an email, was this you? Because it's a different, IP address, just say yes, that's me. It's all you'd have to do is, yeah, that's me. But when it comes to your estate, they have to have your login information. They have to be able to access your account. Um, Unless Amazon's going to do it all for them. But, you know, just just make sure that they have access to all that information. So, oh yeah, some other things, some other accounts, I mentioned, your website, your email, all that. Domain provider. So where did you buy the domain for your website? If you're going to have them shut your website down, then they also need to know where you got your domain name from, because a lot of times that just auto renews. Now, it's not going to auto renew if they close your credit card account. So, it would kind of take care of itself in that sense. But anything that you can think of, Google accounts, social media, any other software you use, your phone, online storage site like Vimeo, things like that. If you have a separate bank account for your business, as well as personal, all of those things need to be addressed. Do you have any antivirus software? Your credit cards? And then, of course, any other important people. He's actually got a spreadsheet in the back here, or like where you can add, it's called important people. So you can write down anybody that would need to be contacted for some reason. Now, this is where some of the information got quite interesting for me. So if you are growing a business out of this, you are becoming a speaker or anything like that, do you have any upcoming engagements? Are are you going to be speaking at a conference? Are you going to be holding your own conference? Or like Sam, another retreat? So somebody needs to know your schedule or have access to your schedule so that like when Sam had her retreat a couple weeks ago, if something would have happened to her, yeah, somebody could have put it on Facebook and I might have seen it, but if I didn't see it and if nobody bothered to call me or email me, I would have flown down there, gotten to the house, and where's Sam? So you need somebody to take care of those business things. So let's say you're speaking at a conference. Who is the contact person? So as you book these things, you have a spreadsheet where you're speaking, who the contact person is, the date you're supposed to be there, their contact information, and your executor has all this information then so that they can call them and say, something happened to so and so, they're not going to be there. So if you're, and again, if you're hosting an event, then all of the attendees need to be contacted. So they need to, somebody needs to know how to get into your email server and know and how to send out a mass email to people, things like that. It's a lot. So as you're growing a business, hopefully you're going to have, an assistant or somebody. But if you're, just doing a little bit here or there, try to keep a spreadsheet and put in your will where it's at, how to access it. Because if you have it in, Google Drive somewhere or something, if they need to be able to log on to your computer, they need to know your logon information to get into your computer in the first place. And something else. Do you have an airline reservation? You're going to speak at a conference across the country and you have an airline reservation. Well, they need to know that they need to cancel that as well. Hotel reservations, car rentals. So if, you have anything going on like that, uh, it, somebody needs to have your schedule. So it would make it makes sense that you would have some sort of a calendar or a spreadsheet where you put all this information down. And so when you pass and they give the information to your executor that they have this information, they can look at it and know that, oh, I got to take care of these things right away. And this is something when you go to ask somebody to be the executor of your estate, if you do have a lot going on, are they willing to take care of those things? Let them know what they're in for. Because if you're not running a business, and all of that, like with my father-in-law, what we did last year, he he had nothing. But it still took us months and months and months to get that settled. So when you throw in a business, you're a speaker, you're a coach, whatever it might be, it's a whole nother dynamic. And you're going to want to make sure that this person is willing to do it. And you might want to name 2 people or 3 people. This is all things that you would want to talk over in great detail with an attorney about. Comments. Some of this also applies in case of an unexpected illness or injury. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a lot. Yeah. And like I said, I know we talked about this last year sometime. I don't remember when exactly, but as I was reading through this book, it just made me think like on another level of how much more there is. Never thought of most of this. Hopefully we get raptured before our path. I know, right? That's what I'm thinking. Like, I don't have to worry about this. I'm getting raptured. No corpse will come into play. Yeah. And if I'm raptured, I don't care. I don't care what happens to my books. I don't care what happens to my house. They can have it. Yeah, the closer we get, the more we don't have to do this stuff. Who needs an author's legacy book? But yeah. Um, pray our loved ones get raptured as well. Absolutely, yeah. Pray our executor to our estate gets raptured with us. So they're not left behind. Um, good comments. But yeah, so I mean, if you've not done anything and you've not thought about any of this, maybe you want to pick up this book. It's totally up to you. An author's legacy, and there's the author's names. That's two authors. But I got it on Amazon. Like I said, I don't know how I stumbled across it, but I did. And so, like I said, there's a lot of different worksheets in here. He's got your plans. What else? Here's executor duties, accounts to consolidate. He's got lots of pages for book information, so you can keep track of every one of your books. So I mean, you could use this instead of a spreadsheet, you could use this. I mean, and then he's like, put this in a safe. Not a safe place, but a safe. So that but then you would reference that in your will that all your instructions are in here. Or I mean, you're still going to want more than this. And again, anytime your estate starts getting a little complicated, because now, I mean, being an author is a business. Whether you take it any further than that and start another business off of that, being an author is a business. And so now you've just complicated your estate a little bit because all these other things need to be taken care of. So, um, questions, comments on that? Let's talk about it.
I had never thought about it being a business, but you're right. I was like, oh shoot, because my executives are like, this is going to be so easy. I'm single, no kids. You know, my plan was just whatever I have, everything I own goes to X, who is my executor. And then I'm leaving them a note so that they know sell it and here's where I want you to give the money. And very simple, easy peasy. Suddenly it's like, oh, yeah, wait a minute.
Sorry, I just made your life more difficult.
That's all right. I just made my executors' lives more difficult.
Yeah, you wish you
I
didn't do
never
it
thought about it,
today.
but you're right. So here's my question that you're not going to know the answer to. I understand the copyright, but is it possible that you could say, when I die, I want my stuff to go in the public domain immediately and not wait for the duration of the copyright?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know. I knew you wouldn't know the answer, but it's
No.
like,
Yeah.
because once I'm gone, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that would be a good question for an attorney.
yeah,
So if you registered it with the Copyright Office, see, and that's another thing. If you purchased ISBN number, that myidentifiers.com, they need to have the login information for that. If you've copyrighted your book, they need to have the login for that. So sit down and start writing out everything that you have to log into, because you don't think about those things. You maybe use them once a year, and just have a running list so that when you do think of it, or you're out here and you're like, oh, I got to sign into this. Oh, I better add that to my list, so that they know where all that is and they can go out and close those accounts. I mean, there's some things it's no big deal if your account sits out there forever, but at the same time, it's good to have everything organized.
Kathy, would you suggest us call that the just in case I die list?
Yeah, you could.
or
Maybe it
stroke.
could be, yeah, just in case I die. Not applicable if I'm raptured.
Right. There you go. Um, two other questions. I know with my regular Amazon account, I could set up a legacy person to keep my Amazon page, my personal Amazon going after I'm gone. I wonder if you can do that with the author side of things. I haven't really explored the author side of things of Amazon yet.
Yeah, it's something that I haven't really dug into, like I haven't talked to Amazon about it. And it wouldn't, hurt to even have a conversation with Amazon ahead of time. I'm planning my estate. I have some questions, something like that. So yeah, and a lot of a lot of attorneys probably aren't used to working with authors either.
Right. It needs
You
to be
know,
a more specialized attorney, I would think. And the other thing, this is just a suggestion for people. I don't remember how I did this, but with Google, if you have Chrome as your browser, you can actually, on my desktop, I have an icon that brings up all my Google passwords. And I did that somehow through Chrome. So if you go to Chrome and go to passwords, you'll see a way to do that. And my theory is I could then copy paste that or even maybe just print it so that
yeah.
it would be available.
Yeah, you click on the three dots that are in for like on a PC, and then you pull up I think it says passwords or security, and then because they've changed it, the wording of it, and then you click on passwords and there's the whole list of them.
Oh.
All right. Any other questions, comments on this?
About 6 years ago, I set up a trust, and it wasn't because of the business. It was because if you still own property and you get ill, they can take it for up to 5 years. They can take your house, they can take everything to help pay for your care. And I didn't want to get caught in that 5 year gap.
Yeah.
So I set up a trust then. And one of my daughters is really good with money, and the other one's a good and not good with money. She's an organizer and not good with money, and the other one's good with money. So I have split up the duties, and they can open up my fireproof safe, and there are instructions right there how to get into my computer, how to get into my phone. Here's your list. Here's your list. Here's my book for the trust. And my attorney even met with my daughter, who's going to be the executor, and for no extra charge, and just went through everything that was in the book and made her feel comfortable that she could manage this.
Yeah.
So she said, I can do it after all, Mom. I think I can do it. I said, yes, you can. So, but all that information, as soon as you open the safe, it's right there. How to get into my computer, how to get into my phone, and the lists are behind it.
That's good. Yeah.
So, yeah, because there's a lot. You don't think about it until you start doing this, how much there is.
Mm-hmm.
But I've passed that 5 year period. So now I don't have to worry about the government or anybody taking anything I have to help pay the bills.
Yeah. Good.
And that's important, people.
Mm-hmm.
You may not die, you may be just very sick or very injured.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Like Mary said,
you
yeah.
don't want powers that be to take your things.
Exactly. And the other thing about this is to remember to update. You publish another book, go out there and add it to your list. Um, in this book, he tells a story of a friend of his, I think it was, that was writing a series of books and passed away before he finished the last two series. And so he finished the books for the guy. But he had to go into the guy's, he was able to transfer the information on that guy's computer to his, but that guy's computer was a Mac and he used a PC. So he had to get some of the stuff converted. I don't know if the guy put in his will that he wanted this guy to finish the books for him or if he just felt compelled to do it. I don't know. But, I'm like, I would not have even thought of that. Like, if I want this book really to get finished, is there somebody I would want to have finish for it? But, if you add a new account, you open up a new account, add that to your list. So it's something that you have to, and these aren't things that you normally do on a day-to-day basis. So it's hard to remember to do that. But anytime you add a new account, whatever kind of account that might be, you write a new book, you want to add it to the list so that they know they have the most current list of everything that you have published and all of your latest accounts. Connie, you were going to say something.
I think we already answered it. I was just thinking, where do you go to find attorneys? Or do you go to estate planning attorneys?
I
Or
would
do
go to
you
an
go-
estate,
you
yeah,
find-
estate planning because, and one that specializes in it.
Okay,
Not an attorney that does this, and we also do estate planning. Do somebody who knows their stuff. This is what they do. They eat, sleep, breathe it. It's all they do. And so they're so much more knowledgeable about it. It's not cheap. I tell you that. We looked into it. And the funny thing is we met with one, and because of, I don't know if we didn't have enough assets for her or what, and she just like, well, you can find, wills out online, and she like turned us away. And it was going to cost like, can't remember, somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000. And I'm like, you just turned away $3,000 to $5,000 because what, you didn't want to deal with us? We could tell she was kind of a new attorney representing this company. She had done like a seminar, and I don't think she necessarily knew how to handle like my business stuff. I don't know. But we're like, who turns away an easy $3,000 to $5,000 or whatever it is? So they're not cheap. And some of them have different plans, and depending what you want to do, if you want to set up a trust, and there's different types of trusts, and they'll explain all of that to you. What's the best? There's irrevocable trust, there's revocable trust, there's all these different types of trusts. What's the best situation for you? But at the very minimum, if you don't do that, make sure you have a will in place, make sure you've named who your executor is, and all of that. Maybe a regular attorney could help you at least get the minimum done, but an estate attorney would be the best option if you can do it. Susan.
I went to this to someone who specializes in it. That's all they do. And I paid $2,200. And I don't own a lot, but I do have a house.
Mhm.
I do have a few things, and I wanted to be sure that someone couldn't take it and I would go where I wanted it to go.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't own much, but it would be a real challenge for somebody to get through it if you don't have it spelled out.
Yeah.
Well worth it. I just watched someone a grandmother who had custody of her grandkids, and she had a will, but the sister fought it. It went to probate. A will is not proof for a
Yeah.
lot of things.
Yeah.
And it can get very, very messy. So a trust is the way to do it, or at least have it done legally with an attorney to tie up all those loose ends so that you can't get yourself into some really bad situations. The
Yeah.
sister ended up trying to take everything away from the grandkids whom she was raising. It can get ugly.
Yeah.
So take care of your business. It's one of those things you're just going to have to do.
Anybody else?
I got some stuff to do now. Thanks.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So you guys have homework to do. That's
If you
that's
do.
like I should have saved this for the last day. It's like, haha, bye bye. Good luck doing all this work. I'm leaving. I'm retired.
I do have a lot of it in place already. A lot of systems, a lot of people, because of the admin company, there's several people that can get into all my stuff. And so I have that part in place. But like Monty, he knows like the passcode to get in on my computer or my phone, right? And he knows a bunch of stuff, but there's a lot more of the details about anyway, but it just made me think that like I have people on my team that know everything. But I don't know that anybody in my family does that has everything. So, and that would be my sister Shelly would be the person that would do all that. So I need to get her in the loop.
Yeah.
So good reminders. Thank you.
Yeah.
If
Susan.
it's someone you travel with a lot, if you were both killed in a car wreck, who would take over?
Mm-hmm.
Think
Yeah.
about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't travel a lot together.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
And the couple things is to remember to update it as things change. And then as you, like I said, you have appointments, you have a conference, you have a retreat, you have something like that. And whether you're the person going to speak, they need to know why you're not showing up. They're like, where's Sam? How she was supposed to speak today? And nobody bothered to contact the organizer and let them know. Or if you're the one hosting something, everybody shows up. Where's the host? So things like that. When I read those, I'm like, Yeah, and the airline flights and the hotel reservations, all those things. I didn't even think about those. And like I said, I know we've talked about this before, but it was more strictly about the book side of it. They need to know your passwords and they need to know what books you have and stuff like this. And this just broadened all of that because there's so much more involved in that, especially if you're going to start, doing speaking engagements or something like that. So pretty important to consider. Yeah, Connie.
Just real quick, and this is redundant, and I know, but again, what is the title of the attorney? Like there are divorce attorneys, there are this attorney, that attorney. What title? Is it just simply estate
Estate planning. Yeah.
or trust? And the trust would come under that umbrella.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yep. Estate
Okay.
planning, estate attorney, something like
Okay.
that. Yeah. And they
All
they
right.
can handle all.
Also probate too. Estate planning and
Probate.
probate would be another one to look
Yeah.
for.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write all that down. I want to be sure I know where I'm going here.
And if you don't know if somebody's, good or not, ask around if anybody is using an estate attorney who they recommend, things like that too. Yeah, Annette.
You may want to check around for, well, I just say what happened to us. A friend just happened to call me one day and said that an attorney was having a free workshop and he was preparing wills. And I got my will prepared, me and my husband, for free. But it was like, then if you retain him, then you basically retain him for, future things. But that had been on my prayer list for like ever. And, it just came up. So, you may want to keep your eye out for people who are having seminars about wills and about preparing for, that type of thing too. Because, that was a godsend because you're right, it's expensive and at least several hundred to prepare a will. But, this one that we got free to have a will plan. But but the thing was, then immediately I'm thinking like, well, I'll call that guy, to talk about the estate, to add this to it. So that's another thing to consider.
That's how we found the ones we were going to work with. They had a seminar here at the local college and free seminar, so we went and along with a lot of other people and they gave some really good information. We're like, yeah, we need to set up an appointment. So we did and walked away with no one willing to help us. So and because we don't have kids, I always joke about who's my worst enemy that I want to make the executor of my state and make them go through all this work. One thing you could do is when you meet with an attorney is just say, okay, this is who I'm thinking of having for my executor. I haven't talked to them yet. But you could talk to the attorney and say, if they're really uncomfortable with this, would you be willing to meet with them like Susan's attorney was and tell, help them to understand what the duties are and will you, the attorney, walk them through this as when time comes that you're going to be there and so forth, so that the executor isn't all freaked out, and get those answers from the attorney so that when you go to the executor and say, hey, I'd like you to be the executor of my estate, but I want you to know up front before you give me an answer, here's what's involved. And my attorney is willing to sit down with you and talk to you about it so that you can decide really if you want to do this or not. Because you don't want to just say, hey, will you be the executor of my estate? Most people are like, well, that's probably not a big deal. Okay, sure. And then you die. Well, now they are your worst enemy. If they weren't before, they might be because you didn't tell them what was, going on. So, you want to be upfront with them and let them know what's involved. But then also, if the attorney's going to be there to hold their hand through it, then it may not be so scary. All right. Any final thoughts or questions on this? Hope this was helpful. As I said, I'm just trying to think what's a really important topic to revisit. And I really felt that this was one of them. Like I said, even if you have things in place, the reminder, to update stuff as you go through. Maybe some things you didn't think about, like I didn't, like the hotels and speaking engagements, things like that. So just some added things to think about. So have fun doing your homework. Better get started.